Good morning. Welcome back to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Sheridan. It's a beautiful Sunday morning, and as far as announcements go, feel free to send those in. Is the Out of Darkness Walk coming up soon?
In September.
Oh, Sue did send out a notification to our congregation that the Out of Darkness Walk is coming up in September. So if that's something you're interested in, masking up and walking out of doors 6 feet apart, please get a hold of her. And I'm sure you can also get a hold of Cal, who also is generally involved in that. If we have any other announcements incoming, we'll keep track of those.
Yep. Just a couple good mornings. Announcement, school starts for many on Tuesday. So wish us all good luck.
Yeah, we might all need it. And for as long as we can be together, we'll try and stay our healthiest and our safest and everything.
If there are any announcements, we'll catch them later. It seems like there's quite a lag today between what we're doing and when you're seeing it. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next order of business is lighting of the chalice.
Lighting of the chalice.
All right. I got it. I got you. Mm-hmm. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, to serve human needs, and to help one another. So if you have any joys and concerns, feel free to send those in. In the interim, while people are sending in their joys and concerns, you can do a little reading, unless you want to start joys and concerns now. I don't see any coming in, though, so I thought I'd give people a little bit of time.
Oh, okay. That sounds good.
Yeah? What do you think?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry. I gotta find my number. Oh, I'm in my hands. Sorry, Ian. See any incoming yet? There they are. Hey. Okay. I should have known it's right on my birthday. I just couldn't remember the number of it. Okay. Come out of the dark earth, here where the minerals glow in their stone cells deeper than seed or birth. Come into the pure air, above all heaviness of storm and cloud, to this light-possessed atmosphere. Come into, out of, under the earth, the wave, the air, love, touch us everywhere with primeval candor.
Amen.
How it might connect to your prayers, everything. Okay, we have a couple of things.
Wonderful.
We have one from Catherine Johnson. Please light a candle of concerns for a fair election for both sides of the aisle. Yes, indeed. Chris Corfanta, please light a candle for the harvest, both garden and soul harvests.
Soul harvest.
Mm-hmm. Ramona says it's a virtual waffle. What does that mean?
No idea. Oh, the virtual walk is the Out of Darkness walk.
Oh, good. Thank you, Ramona. Let us know that the Out of Darkness walk is a virtual walk. Thank you.
This is just a candle of concern for health. Several people in my family are struggling with serious health issues right now. And my grandmother is at end of life care. And we're just grateful that we can sit with her.
Yeah. Yeah. May I? I'd like to light a candle of concern for my good friend Sheridan. Her mom passed away a couple of days ago, and it's awfully sad. And also for my little brother, who is quarantining at the moment and missing his children very, very much. Just for his strength and presence and everything. Okay. I'll light one more for joys and concerns felt but not expressed. What I get for going virtual. Yeah.
Oh, we do have one announcement. We're strongly considering switching weekly services onto Zoom. Initially, we didn't. I think we were concerned that a lot of people wouldn't be able to manage the technology. And now that we've been in this pandemic for 6 months or so, we're hoping a lot of people have had some experience with Zoom. If you have thoughts strongly on that, please reach out to a board member, either Victor or Sue or Ramona or myself or Bill, and let us know your thoughts. It would provide a lot more interaction, which I think we might all appreciate. And it certainly wouldn't be any harder on our end, tech-wise, to be able to host it via Zoom. So that's something to listen for. And if you haven't tried out Zoom yet, I encourage you to give it a try. If you want to just call somebody, reach out to me or Sue or Ramona and just test it out. Give a call. So
it would make the discussion and the ability to see one another just a little bit better than what we have now. People could say their joys and concerns or participate in a discussion, but from the safety of your homes. So if you just search or go to zoom.us, free account, all that, you can go there. Our reading today for meditative silence, also from May Sarton, just like our opening reading. If one looks long enough at almost anything, looks with absolute attention at a flower, a stone, the bark of a tree, grass, snow, a cloud, something like revelation takes place. Something is given, and perhaps that something is always a reality outside the self. We are aware of God only when we cease to be aware of ourselves, not in the negative sense of denying self, but in the sense of losing self in admiration and joy. Our speaker this morning is none other than Ian Wallace. Ian is a great thinker, a deep thinker, and a person just in general of great depth. He's contributed more to our fellowship in the last 6 months than any other person, and for his presence and his wisdom, we are grateful. Please welcome in your own homes, Ian Wallace.
Jules, we both felt like we were forgetting something. We did not play the morning music.
Oh, that's right.
So.
Sure. Did someone let us know?
No, I realized. Maybe we can do a double feature later.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Go out with Zach.
We can go out with some music. That might be nice. Okay. Well, I feel like I shouldn't preface this too much. Oh, somebody's going to say they can't see the top of my head. I just know it.
There it is.
Thank you.
What a nice head top.
I feel like maybe I shouldn't preface this too much, but just to say I hesitated to write this, even though I really wanted to, because prayer is a challenging subject, and I put it off, and I put it off, and I gave up on it several times, and I said, I'll just read something else, but I really wasn't very inspired by anything else that I came across. So I had at least done my research, and I sat down yesterday and wrote it. So here it is. We find ourselves curious about something that, for many of us, is associated with the religions of our childhoods. Victor and Jules have done a marvelous job examining ways in which prayer might serve human need beyond the narrow definition that many of us might have brought with us from our past experiences. To be clear, for some of us, prayer might seem to imply praying to God, and this is something that we may find reductive, constraining, or fraught with societal baggage from which we endeavor to distance ourselves. For others of us, prayer to God is alien, as we weren't all raised with the practice of praying or a belief in God, and therefore prayer itself may seem to be something quite mysterious. For me, and perhaps for some of you, the experience of prayer in my childhood was very powerful. And regardless of what philosophical stances I've found myself holding throughout my adulthood, in moments of fear and crisis, traditional Catholic prayers have returned to me again and again. So it's my intention to briefly investigate why this behavior remains so ready and accessible to my mind. Indeed, I found myself curious as to what the nature of prayer in the brain really is. In the research I was able to do, I began to feel encouraged by my growing understanding of the phenomenon, and I hope that the insight might provide some of you with a new view of prayer as something useful and perhaps less fraught with the baggage of the past. Prayer has an interesting place in the human story. In the agricultural, hierarchical societies out of which our modern societies developed, prayers were appeals and petitions to the gods, whose influence dominated the landscape of daily life. Hunter-gatherer societies pray with less of a sense of supplication. Instead, the interplay of society and the surrounding world are more of a dance. And in fact, hunter-gatherer people often pray through dance. The supplication is to the dance itself. The prayer is bodily lived in the moment as part of a vibrantly diverse spiritual world. Religions are societal structures, orchestrated by behaviors that are seated in the human brain. So when early humans danced to connect with the spiritual energy of the planet, the association was personal in that dance is a communal activity. For those shamans who danced independently, the communicative aspect of prayer was informed by the relationships which shamans had developed with spirits encountered in trance states. But fundamentally, prayer is a form of spiritual communication. The hierarchy within complex modern societies carried across into religious practices. Submitting to the will of a king is something which begins physically within the neurology of the subject, and neurological parallels can be found in the personal relationship between the believer and their God. Researchers have found that specific structures of the brain's basal ganglia are actively involved in evaluating future rewards dependent on interpersonal reciprocity. Is that too much of a mouthful? Yep. So what researchers have found is that specific structures of the basal ganglia are actively involved in evaluating future rewards dependent on interpersonal reciprocity. So the basal ganglia is a region of the midbrain which links the wider cortex to the thalamus, which is a central node integral to the regulation of arousal, awareness, and activity. In short, the thalamus is the hub of consciousness within the brain. So these structures within the basal ganglia were active when subjects were scanned while undertaking games of bargaining, right? So there's a partner and you've got to make deals with them and you want to win a game, you want to get something from them, but you got to give and take, that type of thing. That's very common in our daily interactions. And these specific structures are lighting up when people do this. Okay. The same structures were active for Christians scanned while praying to their personal God. Interestingly, these same brain structures are also active when addicts are undertaking behaviors to serve their addictions. So what can we make of this? The research implies that prayer within the brain acts upon a key nexus of interpersonal circuitry, structures we evolved through engagement in patterns of trust and reciprocity within society over the eons. Prayer is, for the supplicant, about seeking future outcomes from the ultimate other. Humans are highly social creatures. The circuitry of the basal ganglia allows for us to trust that other humans will provide us with care when we are in need. And this is an extremely powerful and central aspect of our humanity. Trust frees us from anxiety surrounding the unknown. Dependence on drugs to deal with these anxieties can easily hijack this social circuitry. Is it then any wonder why narcotics might come to be nicknamed things like Jack or Mary Jane, and why you might hear someone state that wine is their best friend? Along these lines, we might find a new appreciation of Karl Marx's insight that religion is the opiate of the masses. And here we come to face the qualms some of us have with prayer. A foundational belief about God might have been taught to us in early childhood. Each prayer activates neural systems which function to build social trust. Therefore, each prayer serves to reinforce the belief in God.
Prayer is the active method of strengthening the brain structures which are the foundations of an individual's faith in God. Not to make too brusque a comparison, but just as alcoholics state that they never cease being alcoholics after they stop drinking, those of us who were deeply indoctrinated into a particular religion retain the physical neural structures for prayer that served to reinforce a belief which we may now find problematic, archaic, or inadequate. No wonder then that in moments of crisis, a prayer to the Blessed Virgin Mary springs to my mind unbidden. All of this talk about physical structures of the brain may make me sound like something of a materialist, as if I were saying that the world is a giant machine blindly developing into creatures who only delude themselves into believing that they know what's going on. Let me dissuade you of that notion promptly and completely. My intuition rejects the idea that our planet and the human consciousness that it has given rise to are simply a meaningless quirk of cosmic fate. The world is deeply meaningful because we exist within it as meaning-making beings. While this view might seem tautological, and it is certainly as old as humanity, I don't mean to put human beings at the center of the universe, but we're awake. And it is that wakefulness that I find most compelling. Even the plants and amoebas are conscious on some level, clearly. And one begins to wonder at what point the line is crossed between unconscious material and conscious being. Only through our consciousness can we study the world around us scientifically. How then does our consciousness turn the lens of science onto consciousness itself? The dominant materialist view of consciousness stems from Descartes' separation of the mind as an aspect of spirit away from matter, which can be understood deterministically. Mind was then put through the crucible of modernity, and the spirit was stripped away, leaving consciousness as an enigmatic fluke of the brain's complexity. In this view, we stumbled into consciousness through the process of evolution. There can be no spirit for a pure materialist. To believe in spirit as something separate from the physical world would mean the acceptance of a dualistic worldview, a belief in two incongruous worlds. I would suggest that many people in our society hold just such a belief. They are materialists in their basic understanding of the physical world. They are simultaneously spiritual in their view of life's meaning and their role in the cosmos. But alternatives to dualism abound and are in fact as old as humanity. Ancient cultures structured their belief around the supremacy of spirit. During the Enlightenment, the idealists crafted elaborate arguments to support the view that our thought is the result of an underlying fundamental thought which forms the entire universe. New Age mystics and Buddhists alike reject dualism, insisting that consciousness is all that is. There is a compelling beauty to this unified space of being. But this view seems to me too easily adopted by those who already find themselves materially in a place of privilege. I am reminded of the time that my New Age friend stated that anyone can live without food, water, or even air if only they reach sufficient spiritual advancement. Fascinating, isn't it? How scientists utilizing tools of analytical thought taken up from the toolbox of materialism, built the modern world that fed, clothed, and sheltered this young man and everyone he has ever known or interacted with. The brain's beliefs reify themselves materially, even if we profess a complete rejection of the material world. I've recently come across a philosophy that seems to champion the spiritual without throwing out the material baby with the bathwater. Panpsychism is the view that what we describe as consciousness is fundamental to every aspect of the universe. Now, philosophy orients the scientist, and panpsychism allows for the scientific study of phenomena that a reductive materialist view can never accommodate. An example is research into the phenomena of being watched. When someone is looking intently at the back of your head, you get a distinct feeling of unease and are prompted to turn around. No known material phenomenon exists to begin to explain this, and yet it is something broadly experienced. Viewing consciousness as a fundamental aspect of the world would go a long way toward helping explain a great many such phenomena, including, perhaps, the arisal and existence of life itself. We are here because the universe is aware. The material world holds an inherent presence of awakeness, and the spiritual movement of our planet gave rise to life. You could even say that life is our planet's fervent prayer. Here then I return to our theme. Prayer utilizes the brain's circuitry of social trust. We can pray as community members within the interdependent web of all existence. Our prayers can be those of thanksgiving or of petition. As we work to make the world a better place, we can pray for justice. In knowing that your prayers will strengthen your brain's belief in these principles, rest assured that these positive habits of mind will help regulate a beneficial, effective mental state. Those of us who grew up in communities which valued prayer know full well that the practice of prayer can be very good for the practitioner. I encourage you all to take up forms of prayer which are true to your own beliefs. Allow yourself to feel the personal connection you have with the world around you and with the ideals that you hold. We may even be able to reflect back the words, "You are in my thoughts and prayers."
All right, our hymn is Wake Now My Senses. Feel free to sing along.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being and all. Keep with the web of creation your how. Giving, receiving, my guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now, my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Renewal my calling with all who will share. Work towards a plan and transform my heart care.
All right. So I have one more announcement that came in. Thank you for reminding me. This Wednesday, the 26th, at Kendrick Park, there will be a socially distant social gathering. Not potlucky, just bring BYO snacks and drinks. But people can come in and just kind of be around one another. So if you would like to do that, please do. It's from 6 to 8 under shelter number 3. I'm just going to double check. I want to make sure that I've got that exactly right. Shelter number 3, it's east. It's at one of the covered shelters on the east side of the park. August 26th, that's this Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. So please feel free to come and enjoy that. So right now it's time for the offering. You can send a check if you'd like to Ramona. Her address is in the email that Victor sent, or you can access Tidely. There's a link at the bottom of the YouTube feed and also on our website. So if you'll join me, please, in thanking one another for the offering. Let this be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is so sacred to many of us, the community of memory and hope, for we are the keepers of the dream. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Sorry, I'm switching back and forth between various.
Well,
this is what I get for not printing things.
That's okay.
This is what I get for not printing.
This might be kind of like a side announcement,
Please.
But I just noticed that maybe a few more people were watching today than have been through the summer. So welcome back. We've missed all of you. And I would just suggest that everyone reach out to friends who maybe they haven't seen online and encourage them to join in. That would typically happen quite naturally in the fall, but this isn't a normal fall. So
yeah, not normal at all. So okay, I have a little closing words for you. Meditation is not to escape from society, but to come back to ourselves and see what is going on. Once there is seeing, there must be acting. With mindfulness, we know what to do and what not to do to help. Thich Nhat Hanh. Okay. Now, I just keep switching back and forth between applications. I think, I don't need to print anything. That's not accurate, folks. Okay, so we will now have our discussion. So welcome Ian Wallace back to the podium. Yeah.
I don't have my talk in front of me, so if you want specific things, I'm going to have to go grab it. But
Man, I might grill you here.
or maybe it's all in
Ian,
there.
I enjoyed your talk. At the very beginning, when you were talking about the basal ganglia.
Yeah.
The same thing in little children when they do the marshmallow test. Did you know that?
Oh.
Do you remember that marshmallow thing?
Yeah. The marshmallow test is
it's
where
basically like.
Yeah, they tell little kids, you can have one marshmallow now, or you can have 4 marshmallows if you are able to wait 10 minutes.
Yeah. And when I get back, if you wait until I get back, so it's almost like a contract, you know, if you can,
Yeah,
a trust kind of thing.
it totally is. I imagine if you scanned those little guys' brains, that those circuits, yeah.
Also, you mentioned something about like the addicts and getting their fix. Is it like in the interaction with their dealer? Do you know, or is it in the actual ingestion?
So my understanding is that the ingestion and then whatever chemical effects that has on the brain only serve to reinforce the steps taken up to that point. And so like getting the fix is, for a lot of addicts, a huge part of what keeps them coming back. And that's why sometimes when they talk about smoking, they talk about there's multiple hooks. If you've ever heard that, there's the chemical hook of the nicotine, but there's also all these physical hooks that prime people. So like walking outside might be something that like triggers neurons and cues neurons. Hanging out with certain people, being in certain settings are going to be cueing these neurons, and those are those same circuits that are like, here are the steps that we take to get the future payoff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Off screen, we were discussing a little bit about what constitutes a sentient thing and consciousness. So if anybody has any comments on that. We also have a note from Chris Corfanta. For those who favor the idea of an oversoul, might prayer be seen as tapping into that oversoul? For those with a more scientific bent, might prayer be seen as tapping into the web of life? Please comment.
I think that so to speak from my understanding of what the brain's doing, that the circuitry that is used when people are praying to a personal God is interpersonal. And so to feel like you are in relationship with whatever it is that matters to you, to like maybe not too literally, but to think of it as a person, right? To think of it as an other to whom you can relate. That's what it would actively be within your brain, within your mind, within your consciousness. So that could be honestly anything in your life. You know, it could be your baking practice, could be like a beloved friend. And as you relate to that with deep focus, that there's a trust that things are going to work out, if you chose to call it a spiritual practice, your baking could become a prayer. Or your art, or anything. And I think to define it as prayer, I guess you would have to define it for yourself as a spiritual practice. But yeah. Does that answer the question? Cal reached out to me by text. He said, "Thanks, Ian. Amazing blending of diverse perspectives, especially tying prayer to broader consciousness. And I really liked Life is Our Planet's Fervent Prayer." Thanks, Cal.
Yeah. Victor says, I am reminded by your talk by the research showing alpha brainwaves are common to both meditation and prayer practiced by people of any religion.
One thing I saw, Victor, was somebody talking about how different prayer traditions often function meditatively. So, like the praying of the rosary, that there is a clear distinction between transcendental meditation and a prayer to a personal God. Like those are very distinct things happening, but there are some gradations in between. And I was reminded in what I was learning about that after we do meditation here, not that I come that often, but after we do meditation here, there is a little prayer, and it's for, the expansion of compassion for all beings. And it's totally a prayer is what it is, but like, who's it addressed to? It's just addressed. It's just out there, which feels quite different than a prayer to a specific, entity. But that there are certain forms of prayer, even in the Christian tradition, which are very meditative. I knew a group of monks and nuns who would do singing prayer, and they were very short, hypnotic phrases that praised God and glorified his name, and it was maybe 10 or 12 words, and they would pray it over and over again, and they would go for hours. So almost certainly that was an alpha wave thing happening for them. They were meditating, just verbalizing in the process. So
Interesting. We kind of pray for dinner at our house, sort of, but it's more like, so like all like any meat that we eat is like my brother-in-law raised the pig, or Mitch killed the elk, or whatever. So like we know the animal, and like so our prayer is like thanking the animal for its sacrifice for our lives, and or like the farmers that grew the corn, or the whatever the thing is, like that's kind of our prayer. So it really is interpersonal because it's actually one being to another, but it's like a really concrete being.
I think that's I think that's great. And I would say, like, I can speak for myself, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I'm guessing that maybe other people in our fellowship might share a similar experience. That for me, I really fell out of the practice of saying a grace or doing things like that because of the association with, baggage that I don't want to have in my life anymore. And that I would really commend you for doing that, because what research shows is that if you habitually practice gratitude, that is very beneficial to your mental health. And not that you should do it like materialistically or deterministically, but that it's very much a proven thing that if you take time to be grateful for the good things in your world and in your life, that is good for you. And what we might as well say, it's good for your soul, right?
Well, it feels good too to have Emmett, actively participate in like recognizing that this doesn't just materialize on the table,
right?
Somewhere from someone's hard work. So anyway, I appreciate that, Ian. Thank you for your talk. You want to?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll go out with the morning music. How does that sound? Okay, go ahead.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Please come to the Kendrick Park on Wednesday evening or to the Zoom after this, which is also in the email from Victor. And have yourselves a fantastic day.
There are 100 billion snowflakes swirling in the cosmic storm, and each one is a galaxy, a billion stars or more, and each star is a million Earths, giant fiery sun, high up in some sky, maybe shining on someone. And deep inside, where my body cannot go, I touch that beauty and embrace it in the bosom of my soul. And so brief and fleeting is this tiny life of mine, like a single quarter note in the march of time. But my soul is like the music, it goes back to ancient days, before it wore a human face, long before it bore my name. Because my soul is so much older than the evanescent me, it can describe the dawn of time like a childhood memory. It is a spark that was begotten of the darkness long ago. What my body has forgotten, I remember in my soul. This life together, my giant soul and tiny me, one resembling forever, one like smoke upon the breeze, one the deep abiding ocean, one a sudden flashing wave, and counting galaxies like snowflakes, I would swear we were the same. Oh, my soul belongs to beauty, takes me up to lofty heights, teaches sacred stories to me, sanctifies my tiny life, lays a bridge across the ages, melts the boundaries of my bones, paints a bold eternal face on this passing moment.